So I'm one of the founders of DnB Link Up, and DnB Link Up is drum and bass first dedicated peer support network connecting people, projects, initiatives, and for sort of a vision for a more inclusive and supportive scene. Because we believe that healthy support network is an invaluable resource that can help us achieve our personal and professional goals. It helps us improve our mental health, self-advocacy, mindfulness, and general quality of life. We all have something that someone else needs, so if we are there for each other as peers and help where we can, everyone will benefit. So it's an absolute joy to introduce Ifkan. Ifkan is a man about town with fingers in all the pies, specialising in music management and consultancy. He's involved with GutterFunk, Dismantle, Sofa Sound, Carbon Music, Box and Lock, Senka Sonic, and probably 100 other things. And I'm pretty sure he's got a few tricks up his sleeve, so let's get to it. So firstly, can you tell us a bit about your career and how you came to be where you are now?
Initially, obviously, before anyone gets into music, you just love music, don't you? And if you love it enough, you end up wanting to make it or have some part in it. And that's basically what happened with me. And an opportunity came up to manage Foreign Beggars' label, which I went for. But that was only a part-time job, and I was like, just obvious story, I was like doing call centre stuff, absolutely like awful job. If anyone's done call centre stuff, you'll know. And then an opportunity with MetalHeadz came up, and this was in like 2015, I think. So I went for that and got that, and then from like doing stuff with MetalHeadz, that's when it all kind of opened up to doing stuff with Solar, with Exit. And then about 3 years into doing stuff with MetalHeadz, I had enough kind of my own clients to want to start my own thing, because as great as it is working for someone else, you basically can't get sacked from your own company. So I decided to start my own shit. And
you can do it your own way.
You can do it your own way, and you're not limited. And so yeah, it's not just for the reason of not being able to get sacked. It's for other reasons as well. But yeah, so, and then when I started my own thing, I think if you do a good job for one person, it's a small scene, drum and bass. If you do a good job for one person or one act or label or whatever, they'll recommend you to another, and and then before you know it, you've got loads of people and you're really stressed out, basically.
Well, you're doing a good job of it.
Cheers, mate.
So what do you think the reasons are behind your success? Why do sort of people keep asking to work with you?
I think dedication, like it's really obvious answer, but dedication and hard work. And also before I started doing all the label stuff, all the artist management stuff, like everyone, I started mixing and then also making tunes. So I had quite a good understanding and obviously doing parties and all the rest of it. So I had quite a good understanding of all of the different parts of what makes up this scene or music in general. And if you have an understanding of the kind of admin type stuff, and then all the kind of pressure and the thought processes of what being an artist is, you end up being in a good position to help people. So it's a bit of empathy, hard work. Yeah. Nice. Those two things I'd say.
Yeah, I think it's really important to see it from the other perspective as well. I think that makes a really good manager.
Yeah, completely.
Definitely. So, as a music manager, you have a certain degree of responsibility over the artists that you represent. What are the things that you have to consider when in this position as a manager?
Loads. And again, it depends what kind of a person you are, because there's managers who for them the bottom line is money. And less with drum and bass, I guess, although I'm sure there are corners of drum and bass where it happens. But, you know, if your artist is paying your rent or your mortgage, I don't do this, but if your artist is paying your rent or your mortgage effectively and you're money motivated, you're going to be pushing your artist to do things, whether you realise it or not, that effectively about making money. And that is totally the wrong way to go about it. I'm sure my life would have been a lot easier if I was a bit more like that, but it's not. And I'm more kind of artist focused, where you've got artists are creative people, obviously. Creative people are very open to a lot of different emotions. That's what makes them creative. That's what makes them artists. So there's a whole barrage of stuff that comes with that you have to be aware of when you're helping them make decisions, and you're helping guide them through the dark parts of what it is to be an artist, because it's fucking hard, right? So it's a lot of responsibility. So you have to understand how to get to the art, how to get to the best result whilst not compromising them, and also it's a bit of a balancing act, but you have to. It has to be artist-led first, rather than money or anything else like that.
Yeah, interesting. Is there anything that you do to keep yourself mentally well? When you said that as an artist we're multi-dimensional, got a lot of emotions.
Yeah.
Is there anything that you do to keep yourself?
Yeah, and you know what? It's really, really, really. It's a really obvious and really boring answer, but exercise. Yeah. To be honest, like. Or sticking to routine, whatever your routine entails, as long as it's good for you, stick to that. So whether it's like trying to keep normal hours, trying to stay off your phone, like using social media, knowing when to use social media and knowing when social media is using you. But yeah, I think routine, and for me, what's in the routine is exercise and not looking at my phone first thing in the morning. Just all the mental health stuff that we know that we don't always exercise. I'd recommend everyone to just pick up on the tips that other people talk about and exercise them, not in the physical way, but exercise those tips. Because we're just as creative as artists or in this thing, it's going to get harder. Like there's going to be more social media platforms, there's going to be more people showing their successes, only showing you their highlight reels and not the hard work and not the failures and whatever. So you really have to overcome that, and I think routine is a great way of overcoming that.
And being a person as well as an artist.
For real.
I think so.
Completely. Doing normal shit, having normal people around you, completely.
Yeah. Cool, thank you for that. So, generally speaking, to what extent do you believe that artists get the support they need in the music industry?
I don't think they do. Maybe not at all. I think they're starting to more now. But I think if there was more of a narrative of like, damn, this is difficult. Like if one person stood up and was like, are you feeling this way? I think more people would be like, yeah, actually, do you know what? I am feeling this way. I see people constantly on social media now. I don't know if anyone follows Chester P from Task Force, but he's obviously having a really tough time at the moment. And he dove right into Instagram to express how much of a tough time he's having. But half of the tough time is not obviously, but a lot of the tough time he's having is exacerbated by Instagram. So I think we need to be a bit more open. I think we need to be a bit more honest in that you don't have to be in competition with your fellow artists. It'd probably be better if you weren't. And you were able to have someone or talk to your fellow artists or your fucking mates or whoever, no matter what level they're at creatively, and just be like, fucking hell, this is long. I don't want to be on Instagram. I don't want to post this. I don't want to, do you know what I mean?
There's a lot of pressure, isn't there?
There's loads of pressure, and it's about, and just knowing that everyone's under that pressure. If you're looking at person X is looking at person Y, and then person Y is looking at it doesn't matter how successful they are, we're all just looking above us thinking, I want to be doing that, why am I not doing that? So just knowing these things can make your journey a little bit easier.
Yeah, definitely. And having these kind of discussions about it.
For real,
really
completely.
Important. Yeah. So let's move on to the next question. What could artists and industry workers do to support each other more, either personally or professionally or both?
I think a simple one with that I think we can all do is just reach out more. Do you know what I mean? If you see someone who's kind of like, if obviously if your mate is telling you stuff, then do you know what I mean? Conversate with them. And if it's you that's feeling that way, open up to other people and just be a bit more humane, I think. Reach out to people. You know, this isn't music specific. If you're a good person, you should be doing this anyway, whether you worked in a fucking Royal Mail or a bakery or drum bass. Do you know what I mean? Just reach out, be humane, and be real. I think that is a good start. And practice what you preach, I guess. Lead by example is also an important one, I think.
So do you think if like the people from the top down were being quite open and honest about how they feel, they'd be setting a better example for new up and coming people that are in the scene?
Yeah, completely. And I think, you know what, we're like the people who are coming up now, or compared to like the people who were working in this game like even 5 years ago, maybe even 3 years ago, you're all so much more open, and there's such a better narrative around mental health and support and stuff like that I think is only going in the right direction, to be honest.
I think so too.
Yeah.
But we don't have a HR department. Most of us are self-employed. It's a difficult thing. So to be able to have this kind of peer support, hence why we started DnB Link Up, to have a bit more of like a peer support network of people to just share ideas and share, feelings. Cause
it's really important. This kind of thing didn't exist. Like I said, even like 3 years ago, this didn't exist. Like so many positive things that in this industry now didn't exist, whether it's like EQ50 or this, or just people just having an open narrative about their journeys in this music thing. Like it didn't exist, and there's so many positives now, so it's great.
Yeah, it's definitely moving forward, I think. Yeah. Nice. So can you pinpoint the most valuable lesson you've learned throughout your career, or lessons?
I was thinking about this one, and it's quite tricky but I think don't take too much on. Give yourself a break. I think that's like we're lucky to be, if you're doing this like professionally or even semi-professionally, you have to remember we're incredibly lucky to be doing this. Like at some point, DJing in front of people was your dream, or making tunes that get played by other people that you respect was your dream. And it's important to remember that. But also, because it is your dream, you just want to do loads of it, and you want to do as much as possible to make yourself as successful as possible, which is great. But that also can lead to loads of pressure that you put on yourself. Definitely. So I think that's something to be aware of.
I think because of the nature of, you work in a weekend essentially, and then working a week to try and build up for the weekend, it's hard to take those kinds of breaks as an artist.
Yeah, completely.
But it's like music, music, you've got space in between musical notes, so it's the same thing. It's like rest in between these things is really important. Yeah,
it's a really good way of putting it. It's not things will start to lose their effect if you're just hammering it constantly.
So rest.
Yeah, I'd say so.
Mainly, yeah. So what are the things that managers look out for or see potential in when deciding which artists or brands they want to represent?
I guess it depends what kind of manager you are. Like I said before, there's some people who would just be like, that person's going to pop. It'd be really easy for me to do X, Y, Z with them, and cool. That sort of situation is kind of difficult, because if the quicker, this is a kind of difficult one, but the quicker you rise, it's likely that you'll fall at the same kind of pace. And that's not the golden rule, but it's it happens. But it depends what kind of manager you are. So I guess like what I would look for is someone who I completely believe in, not just as an artist, but I believe that they're doing this for the right reasons. Because like we said, it can be really difficult, do you know what I mean? So I'd be looking for someone who's obviously talented, got the right head on their shoulders, understands that talent is only a part of the battle.
Yeah,
exactly. Hard work. There's just so much that goes with it, but talent is only it's a fraction of what you have to possess to be successful. So someone who's got their head screwed on, someone who's in it for the right reasons, and someone that you align with, basically. And you only find these things out down the road as well. So you've got to not be afraid of making mistakes. And just because it doesn't work out with one artist, or in your guys' case, is one label or a tune that you had high expectations for doesn't do as well as you thought, don't worry about it. Just brush it off and carry again. You don't like. One thing that I've learned is that it's not a mistake if you've learned something from it. Quite the opposite. If you've learned something from this thing that's happened, then it's not a mistake. It's just, it keeps you better informed for the next time you do it. So that's
Yeah. So just keep moving forward with the knowledge that you've previously got from something.
Yeah, exactly. And for me personally, it's just talent, right attitude, and doing it for the right reason. Are the types of things that I look out for.
Yeah, because you do have a lot of people doing things for a lot of different reasons, don't you? So I suppose it's about finding things that align with your ethos and your specific reason why you're doing it.
Yeah, because you don't want to later on down, like, start working with an artist or a label and then later on down the line find out that you've got completely kind of different aims, or like you're just not aligned, because it's just going to cause you hassle. And there's nothing worse, especially from like a management point of view, whether it's label or artist. Like, it's a big fucking responsibility. Like, excuse the swear, I'm Sri Lanka. It's a big responsibility. Like, if they're not like an art, as you all know, it takes you a very long time. Well, some of you, maybe some people write tunes really quickly, other people take ages. The point is however long it takes you, that tune's very fucking important to you. So then when it gets passed to the label, the people working at the label, you've got to do a good job for this artist, because they've put a lot of effort into this record. And you know, it's not just putting in a lot of effort for the tune, but they've sat there at their computer and they've put a lot of their dreams into that tune. To be honest, they've thought about what it's like. They've envisaged what it's going to be like when they play it out, or person X plays it out, or they might have had. Do you know what I mean? So it's like you've really got to treat this work with respect. So I've kind of forgotten what the question was.
Well, it doesn't really matter that much.
Yeah.
But that's interesting. How would you say, if you didn't like something and you know that someone put loads of effort into it, how would you go about approaching that? You
know what, and that's a really, really fucking good question, because from my point of view, I work with a lot of music passes through my hands, and obviously I'm not going to like 100% of it, but you've got to understand that just because you don't like something, when you're in my position anyway, like on the label or the management side, just because you personally don't like something, it doesn't mean that it's not going to be fucking huge, basically, and that because it's opinion based, you could be wrong. So you've got to work it to the best of your ability, whether you're completely in love with it or not. I'm quite lucky that like 99% of the stuff that I work with I really, really like. But you know, there was stuff when I was working for bigger labels that I wasn't doing stuff on my own that I didn't like 100% of it. But because you've been given the responsibility of this record, you've got to fucking do right by it, basically, because this is someone's art. And if your taste is a little bit niche anyway, like when I was working for some of the bigger labels, I always found myself being into the tune that was the digital only tunes, you know what I mean, and stuff like that. So I kind of find out that my taste was quite niche anyway, quite quickly.
Works well for Sofa Sound, actually.
Yeah, exactly. So yeah.
So just seeing it from not necessarily just your perspective, but seeing how it could be put out into the world. Yeah,
because just realising that your opinion your opinion is no more valuable or no less valuable from the person in the rave or the artist that's made it. So, and ultimately this music isn't, if you're sat there listening to it at home in your office or wherever, the tune wasn't made for that. The tune was made for playing out or being in a club environment. And also and realising, don't ever lose the raver kind of element of yourself, which is important. And just realise that the music's bigger than you. So if you don't like something, it doesn't mean it's shit.
Yeah.
Basically.
Yeah, that's good advice. So, coming on to the last question, do you have any key pieces of advice for aspiring artists who want to make a career out of dance music?
Again, it's not particularly like unheard advice, but you've got to work super fucking hard at what you do. You've got to realise that it is like, it's difficult, that you're not, it's going to take you, basically work hard and knowing that it's going to take you a while to get to your goal. Don't be perturbed if it takes you long. Don't compare yourself to other artists. Like we were saying earlier, it's really like, you pick your phone up and you go into this world via social media, which is like, basically you do your creation, which is great. You're in front of your computer or your fucking whatever your tools are, and that's pure. Do you know what I mean? That's great. It's just between you and your computer or the person you're working with or the fucking painting or whatever, and that's pure. Do you know what I mean? Yeah. Most of the time. And then after that, your first port of call is posting it. And that isn't so pure. Do you know what I mean? That comes with its own set of bullshit.
It's for other people, isn't it?
Yeah, and then you've got to start worrying about all of these other things that are nothing to do with the art you've just created. Like, how are people going to see it? Do I need to put a fucking photo of my face in front of the flyer now for it to get seen by people and all of this shit? Do you know what I mean? And maybe you don't want to upload a picture of yourself just so the flyer gets seen.
It seems to be that way.
Do you know what I mean? And all of these separate things. So I think like. you got to be pretty headstrong, and you've got to make sure that your kind of your mental health, you've prepared yourself in the best way mentally and physically for this thing you're doing. And it sounds so fucking extra because you just want to write a tune or you want to go play in a club and all of these things, but unfortunately that it's a lot different to that now, because there's a lot more facets artists have got to consider. So I would say try and be as well rounded as you can, and understand that things that are nothing to do with music can affect your outlook on music quite positively. So like I said, like I'm super not the healthiest person on the planet. Like I've gone through, do you know what I mean? I do what we all do. Do you know what I mean? And have done what we all do. But I did get to a point where I realized that actually, like it sometimes it is all of the non-music related stuff that makes my music related stuff work. Because if music is your passion, then you need to be in the best possible place mentally to be able to exercise, to make sure that that passion kind of does what it should. Do you know what I mean? And that doesn't mean like fucking like, you know, filming yourself in the gym or just being this extra super sick guy doing all of this shit, but just, you know, if you are feeling a bit shit, just realizing that that might inform how you feel about stuff. Just being kind to yourself. Do you know what I mean? Whether it's by going out for a run at fucking 6 a.m, or just realizing, do you know what, today is not a day for me to go on Insta or whatever.
So taking some responsibility for yourself. When
and not, like I said, I'm keen to point out, not even just the harsh way of like go out and fucking run at 6 o'clock whilst fucking, you know, whatever. But just realizing that this, more often than not, is stuff outside of music that affects your creativity. That's quite an obvious thing to say, but just being aware of that, I think is quite important. So I just think knowledge of self is fucking important when you're being creative. Surrounding yourself with when you're being creative, like Hayden was saying about like watching interviews with people you find inspirational, like all of these things. Like it feels like I spend my life on YouTube watching interviews with people. Like I'll watch interviews with people whose music I barely know as well, just to kind of, and what that's given me is that an understanding of how similar everybody is. And finding out that everyone fucking makes mistakes, and like people's journeys to the top were filled with the same mistakes that you've made or you're gonna make as well, and just all of these things, like so just I guess what I'm trying to say is just surround yourself with put yourself in the best possible environment that you can, and whether that is, like I said, going out for a run at fucking 6 o'clock or whether you're like, you know what, no, not today. Just being kind to yourself. And don't compare yourself to others, because that is the worst thing you can do, and it's often the first thing that we do. But it honestly is, it's not the one at all.
Well, everyone's so individual that it's silly to you. But I remember you gave me some good advice. Is what because an agency had approached me about being on the label on their agency. You said what you're around, you kind of become, and that's what you're seen as. So it's like surrounding yourself with good people that you know are doing things that are in line with what you're doing. Is really important.
Super important. And I think as well, like if you're and another thing I think, like be aware of where you look for success as well. So whether you're and being happy, if you've started a Bandcamp and you've only got 5 followers on there, those 5 followers are really fucking important, because that's the start of your community. Whether it's like and you can foster that community, and that'll be your community whether you release on established label or not. And because they're your community and not your peers or not your competition, you can build that and enjoy this exchange with these people in a great way, because even if they've bought one of your tunes via Bandcamp, you get their email. You can communicate with this person via email. You can say cheers for you can start a conversation with them. Obviously, with bigger labels, that's more difficult. But with Sofa Sound, we definitely try to do that with Bandcamp. We communicate with our fans all the time. We give them stuff early because they're your bread and butter. So be constant. That's another thing as well. It's another way of getting positive feedback. Don't wait for a label to get back to you or whatever, or don't wait for Because again, I'm sure your mate sent you a tune and you haven't got around to listening to it, or you've even bought tunes off Beatport before and you've totally forgotten that you bought it. Like, people are just human. Like, the amount of times I've forgotten, like, we've all done that thing, or maybe we haven't, but you've heard DJ X play a tune, and then you've asked producer Y for it, and it turns out producer Y sent you that fucking tune ages ago. Do you know what I mean? And all of these sort of things happen all the time. So don't be disheartened with that shit. And yes, start your own shit. Start your own community. Whether it's 3 people, 5 people, 10 people that are following you, have bought your shit, communicate with them. Do you know what I mean?
It's valuable. That community is valuable. And
yeah.
If 5 people are enjoying your music, that's like beautiful.
Because if 5 people, if you went onto the street right now and 5 people were like, "You're fucking sick," you'd be loving it. But just because it's digitally and you can't see 5 people, but it's kind of true though. Do you know what I mean? Because it's digitally and you can't see them, you're like, "Oh fuck, it's only 5 people." Those 5 people are important, and those 5 people might tell you you're sick, and that's gonna fucking make your next day a lot better. So, do you know what I mean?
That's give you the drive.
Yeah, man. And whether it's 5 or 3 or 2 or 1, it doesn't matter. But just start building your community somehow, somewhere. Because they're the people that are going to be with you for a while. Yeah.
So the core of that really is relationship building, isn't it?
Yeah.
I think in any industry that's super important.
Yeah. And also, like, as artists, you lot have the power now. It might not seem like it a lot, but you do have the power now. So if you're waiting for big DJ to play your tune and they don't, you've still got an audience. You can still get to your audience. Do you know what I mean? You can still do creative shit. And ultimately, that voice that you guys build is going to be... is super important. It's going to be with you whether, person X plays your tune now or in 6 months' time. You've still got that exchange to your audience, which you're looking to get to anyway. And then who knows, that shit might build, and then there might be another artist who comes to you because he's seen what you do or she's seen what you do, and do you know what I mean? Before you know it, you got your own label. You could create your own thing rather than necessarily. Completely.
I think that's really important. Is knowing that there's scope to do your own thing. It's not necessarily all about the bigger labels. Yeah. As lovely as it would be to release on bigger labels.
Yeah, absolutely. Because we all go... This is the thing as well. Like, I don't know how... When I was a bit younger and before I had a hand in this industry, like, I'd put some crazy thoughts onto these labels and these DJs thinking they were fucking incredible and, like, super sick, and it was all like... And the fact is, we're all the same. Yeah. Like, we're all just... We've just got a bigger audience. Like, you might just have a bigger audience than the next person, but honestly, you're all the same. We're using the same interfaces, you're using the same programs. You have the same hopes, dreams, and disappointments. Do you know what I mean? So, yeah, do it yourself, build it up yourself, and communicate with whatever size community you have, because it's super important.
Yeah, because it's quite connecting when you can be like, oh, you're probably similar to me, you've had the same hardships as me, you understand the things,
Yeah, completely. And that's why we're all in the same room anyway. We're joined by this fucking, by this bond that is drum and bass. Do you know what I mean? But no, but for real, like this, you end up being mates with people who are into the same shit. You end up living with them, And just because they bought your tune and they're like 100 miles away from you, or like 3 miles away from you, it's still the same. It's the same thing.
Yeah. Nice.
I think that's super important. And then if you get too busy, then you can start speaking to you might have a mate who's better at admin than they are making tunes, or the brain works in that way, because ultimately that's kind of... And you know what, there's no shame in that either. I'm like, everyone's dream is to, like I said, we all got into this because you wanted to smash it in your favorite club, or you wanted to release on your favorite label. There's loads of variables of if that happens for you or not. And if you I didn't have enough time to make tunes because I had a day job as well. So, but my brain was still working in a certain way that I've still ended up this being my full-time job. Do you know what I mean? And I didn't get into this wanting to be a fucking manager. I got into this wanting to be Andy C. Do you know what I mean? Like, that's the fucking truth. Do you know what I mean? And nobody gets into this wanting to do like the admin side. No. But if you like it, you end up enjoying it, and that's how you... And that's how you have a happy life.
Yeah, and I think it's an important point to make is that the scene is big, and there's lots of different slots that you can be in. If you want to be in the music industry, you're not necessarily a DJ or a producer. Yeah. There's loads of different things that you can do to be in the scene.
Shitloads. And if you're like... absolutely. And then you know what, and even if you're like, no, producing's my calling, like there's no rules for anyone to tell you your tune's shit or your tune's amazing. Like, just put your shit out there, see how it fares. And this is like, if you want to protect yourself from being, when you, as an artist, like we're saying, you are super exposed. And if you want to protect yourself from that, then I'd just go back to what I'm saying about surrounding yourself with positive things. Whether that's, like we're saying, like watching YouTube interviews about people's journeys, understanding how you could be kinder to yourself, all of these things, because ultimately when you are super exposed, you've got to have a really thick skin.
It's vulnerable.
Yeah, exactly. So you've got to have a thick skin, and in order to have a thick skin, that's just down to you. No one's going to help you get that thick skin. And the quickest way of getting to that thick skin is understanding that we all go through the same shit. It doesn't matter who you are. Your favourite artist to the artist you hate the most, it's music. Everyone goes through the same shit. And kind of reading, watching, building up a better understanding of what it is of how you can navigate through the choppy seas of what music is or being an artist is.
And life in general.
Life in general.
Flow, you know.
Yeah.
And the community is quite invaluable in that sense. I think if you've got your little thing
completely.
going.
Yeah.
Has anyone got any questions they want to ask? Go on.
Yeah. Earlier in the conversation, you asked a question about, to summarise it, seemed to be like emotional availability from senior or more established artists. What do you think that actually looks like when you're talking about, you know, if you're talking about Instagram or platforms that it can be broadcast on? In your head when you're talking about that, what do you think that manifests itself as?
I mean, I don't think that you necessarily need to be on. Well, maybe you could just be on Insta going, look, I'm feeling like this. That's a like if you do that, then you're super strong. And if you're doing that, you're super strong, which means you might have a better grip on this. You've already got a good grip on it. But I think you don't have to necessarily be on Insta doing a video going, I'm feeling X, Y, Z because of da 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 da. I think if someone, I mean, I'm assuming this anyway, but if you as an artist was to say to your mate who's also making tunes or whatever, like, this is fucking hard, or I'm finding this hard about it, and not, you might make the best tunes in the world, but you might still, the mental feeling about it is different to that. So just, I think how it looks is just talking. I think it's quite, that you don't need to, like, it doesn't need to be someone who, it could be someone who you know really well, it could be someone who you don't know that well, but just being brave enough to, I think the first step is just being brave enough to know that you will find someone out there who's feeling similar to you. Some people are very like, with their music processes, are quite black and white about it. They might not have the emotional attachment that you have to your music or to music in general, so they might not get it. However, there are going to be a lot of people who do get it. So I just think talking, man. And like, I'd say I'm like the generation above you guys just. But we didn't talk about that shit at all. It was just fucking competition. Like super masculine, testosterone-y, mate, you played my tune, I'm a better DJ vibe. Do you know what I mean? But there's, like we're saying, the narrative's changed now, where people like, where there's this, or there's like other kind of like support, or just where I think people are more comfortable, hopefully, just being going, this is fucking long, and I don't feel like I'm getting anywhere, and it's making me feel shit. How do you feel? Vibe. Which I think's the one. Just talking, man. I know it's difficult, but I think talking's the one. No worries, cheers.
Anyone else?
Yeah. If you get, like, I think getting an offer from someone who says they want to represent you, some people can feel kind of flattered into saying yes.
Yeah.
What kind of things should artists be thinking about when they get an offer like that, realistically?
Look at the other people, look at the full picture of who the other person's representing. So if it's an agent or a manager or whoever, I guess the same rules apply. Look at who they're representing, talk to them for a long period of time. You don't have to say yes or no in that conversation. If they're worth your time, they'll stick with you for an amount of conversations, do you know what I mean? To get you on board if they really fuck with what you do. And if you've got a close relationship with people on their roster, speak to them, but with a pinch of salt, because what I found is like most artists, or like, you know, it's a 50-50 thing. It takes two to tango. So sometimes if an agent or a manager isn't doing their job properly, it's not just going to be because of them, and vice versa as well. Do you know what I mean? So if you know people on their roster, then talk to them, and put the artist or put the manager or the agent like through their paces a little bit. Do you know what I mean? Like, say, look, I'm not going to say yes now, but let's keep in touch. Like, test them a little bit, send them projects, ask if it's from the manager point of view, send them a project or a tune or whatever, and go, look, what would you do with this? How would you help me get da-da-da-da? And see if their ideas align with what you're thinking, basically. So, yeah, it is like, you're right, it is flattering for people, but just understand that also from an artist point of view, you're the... I won't say this about a manager because I am one, but certainly with agents work for artists. You have to remember that. But often they just seem to have this power thing. So you need to be aware of that. And also with managers, just make sure they're aligned with what your vision is. I've said this loads, and you can do that by feeling it out.
That's good advice.
Cool, yeah. Like, as a new artist, like, or whatever artist coming through, like, at what stage should you be? I mean, you were talking to the guy before me, so I don't know your name, but you know, you're talking about being approached by a manager. But like, as an artist coming through from Cornwall, where I'm from, like, it's kind of an open world that's a bit kind of closed off from us down there. Like, at what stage should you be looking at getting a manager? And also, like, just real basic question, like, what does a manager actually do? Like, what should you be expecting from a manager? Why should you have one? Like, what doesn't? Yeah, what?
They're all really good questions, and I'll try and get through them one by one. So, at what stage? I would say when the work has become too much for you to manage is a definite clear point of, and that work can be your social media or if you're finding that, if you're an isolated artist, if you're finding that you need someone to bounce off, that's also a good stage. If the workload gets too much for you, i.e. like you can't be dealing with social media, you can't be, if you're doing all your own bookings at that point, maybe you need someone to be the front end of that conversation, whether it's sending a contract, dealing with the negotiations, all of that. I wouldn't necessarily, especially with management and possibly agents as well, I wouldn't say they make or break for new artists. What a manager looks like and what an agent looks like can be totally open as well. You're in a position now with music where there are no rules. So if you're totally isolated and you're an artist on your own, then this might not apply to you. But if you've got a strong grip on this industry, what a manager does and how much you pay your manager can be open. If it could just be like a stringent professional manager in a management company who's going to charge 20%, or if you're in the early parts of your career and you just need some help organising, it could just be your friend who's your fucking raving partner or anything like that, that you're like, okay, cool. Are you interested in starting something with me where obviously I'm the artist, I'm going to be writing the tunes, but I think you'd be good at X, Y, Z. Do you want to take care of that for me? You don't have to, because it's your little cottage thing that you've started, you don't have to pay them 20% either. You could just say, look, I only need you to do my socials and deal with a booking email if it comes in, and therefore you're going to get paid this much, or you can take this much percentage of it. So it really is about, again, and I guess this goes back to the building your own castle sort of vibe. If you are, then there's the other side of it where agents and managers are always looking, they've always got their eye open. So you might have one big record and then loads of people come knocking at your door, and they might start offering you the fucking world, etc., etc., and then it might be a bit overwhelming for you. So it's different in how it looks, but I'd say like a surefire sign of knowing that you need help is stuff's becoming too much for you to do and it's taking away from your creative process. And if it starts doing that, then you should probably start working with someone, because essentially you got into this to be creative, not to deal with emails or strategy. Strategy is creative as well. You should be doing that with your manager and your agent. But yeah, So time, I think, is a factor. How much time you've got, or how much time you realise you haven't got anymore. How to get to people. If you've got to that stage and you've got no one around you, or whatever, and you're like, oh, I want to get to a manager, then hit people up and have conversations with them. And ultimately, like we were saying, if they don't get back to you or the feeling isn't right, then they're not the right person for you. So don't worry about it, but reach out and go, look, give them example. If you want to impress an agent or a manager because they're doing a good job of what they do, or they've got good people on their roster that you think you'd associate with and look good next to, then just give them examples of what you've done. If an artist came to me and he's like, look, I've got 3 or 4, I've done 2 projects and they went like this. I did it from top to bottom. Like, I made the tunes and I released them, and this is my strategy and all of that. If someone came to me like that, I'd be like, all right, cool, you've got a good grip on things. Do you know what I mean? That's a way of impressing them and showing them that you've got your admin game switched on as much as your creative game. So I'd say just redefining the point, if there's an agent or a manager that you want to get to, make sure you're prepared before that conversation. People just want their lives easy, their jobs made easier. So if you're an artist and you can show them X, Y, Z, then yeah, do that, I'd say. And then if you can't get to a manager, you don't want to get to a manager, just see what you can do for yourself and use the people around you, whether they're local to you or they're part of, or you've met them online, or they're in a community that you use online. Try and kind of maybe try and build something yourself that way. But it's a lot in the beginning. You're doing it all as an artist, as you lot know. Do you know what I mean? So yeah.
Well, thank you.
No worries.
That
Thank
was
you.
really insightful.
Cheers, all. Nice one.